Obviously, you then became captain of England under Eddie Jones. And first question is, what was it like working with Eddie Jones, and how did he help you grow as a captain from, as you said, even towards the end of the career, not necessarily knowing what you were doing. I'm sure along the way you thought, you know what, I'm doing a good job at points. How did Eddie help you become the best version of yourself?
Man, he made me basically realize what work ethic is, and um, not leaving a stone unturned in search of and preparation and diligence and whatnot. And I think the comparison here is this is a really difficult one, because when you're at Northampton and you've been there for so many years, a new player signs and they're like, oh, Dylan's been here for 8 years, 10 years, shit, 15 years by the end of it. Like, he knows this place, listen to him, or be guided by him. But then you go to England and you adopt this team, and you're the captain, and you're front and centre of rivals. We played Leicester as our local derby, both clubs 140 years old almost. My direct competition, Tom Young's his best mate, Dan Cole. Like, professionally, probably both hate me. But if we all walk away from it and we go for a pint, it's all good. But then, like, one week we're playing Leicester, and then the following week we go into England camp, and it's like I've then got to try and bring these people together. Um, so that was difficult. But I think what made it easy is Eddie created an aspirational group. He basically said, if you don't want to pull your weight and if you don't want to buy in, you're not going to be here. He basically said you can F off. So my job was easy in that respect. So if I asked someone for help, or if I asked someone to do something, or if I needed something from someone and I wasn't getting it, ultimately this never happened, but I could say, like, this guy's not pulling his weight, like, and he would be gone. And Eddie used players in that respect to create corridor chat. I tell a story about one player, played up in, it was either in Newcastle or Sale, drove down after he played Sunday night, one-on-one with Eddie. Everyone has a one-on-one with Eddie when they turn up. And he full well knew that he wasn't going to use this player to play. He was in the wider squad. And naturally, how are you, mate? Come in, how are you, mate? And the player says, just played, just driven 3, 4, 5 hours. I'm tired. And he just said, fuck off, get out, go. And he literally went, and he turned up, and he was gone within half an hour, because he said he was tired. And he told me why he did it, because, if he's tired, he goes back to his roommate, tells his roommate he's tired. And then, lads hang out in rooms, 4 or 5 of them are in there, and then they think, oh, tomorrow he's going to take it easy, so I'm going to go into physio and report, a neural issue with my back. And then all of a sudden you got 5, 6, the attitude of the camp kind of goes that way. It's almost like a cancer. It can grow pretty quick. Whereas he nipped it in the bud sharpish, and instead everyone would talk about being tired, everyone was talking about, did you hear about that guy saying he was tired? So everyone's like, I'm not tired, we're good, like, we're good to go. So that was a pretty good example of the power of words, and I learned that from him. But your question was like, how was it working with him? It was intense. Was it enjoyable? No. Was it satisfying? Yes. I look back on it with great fondness, because I learned a lot about myself. I got pushed probably more mentally and physically, more mentally than physically. But he basically said, you're one of the oldest players in the team. Your skill set is limited, which, I understand. As a player, I was very good at certain things, but only those things. He just said, as long as you do this, this, and this, and you be the example of work ethic as one of the oldest players here, there's a place for you. So he basically gave me plenty of opportunity to display work ethic. It's almost like ancient Rome, like, uh, on days off, kind of the guys were sat around getting massage, eating grapes, drinking coffees, playing PlayStation, and I would be doing extra fitness. He got in UFC coaches to roll with me, ground and pound, and he made it visible. After training, it would be, right, everyone get to recovery, get down to spa, sauna, and quite publicly it would be, Dylan, top up over here. As the guys are walking off, I'm walking off to the cones or sit out for me. So it wasn't because I was unfit. Physically, I always needed to improve. I get that, because my weight sort of fluctuated, undulated, was pretty turbulent, went up and down. But I look back at my time under Eddie from year one in 2016 to when I finished, man, I looked physically so much better by the end of it. So he said we can my first meeting, he said, you're going to be the example of work ethic. And he said, physically in your game, we can't change much, but we can just notch it up and get a couple of one percenters in you. And I look at physically even how I looked when I retired compared to when I started. I was way different, which was great. It was kind of proof of the, not the pudding, but I cut the puddings out. But it was just intense, mate. You know, he's one of those guys that can function on 4 or 5 hours a night. You know, I need 9 hours, 8.5, 9 hours. Um, and when you've got someone like him who functions like that, he fills all his spare time with rugby, with data, with questions, with he wants to know things. So he's very respectful. I mean, he plays games with some guys, you know, at 4 in the morning, guys get text messages, and that's not him. He's just up, he's thinking about rugby. But every day my day would start with meeting with him, and every day would finish with meeting with him. And that would almost dictate my, not my mental health, but my state of mind. You know, I'd either go to bed happy or wake up happy or have a good day if it was a good meeting, depending on what mood, or if he wanted to fire a few fucks into the team and he thinks we were just a bit complacent, he'd come through me, you know, the night before he'd say today was terrible. What are we doing here? We shouldn't even bother. It's too relaxed. You know, the guys don't care. We're going to get beaten at the weekend. This is a very polite way of saying it, by the way. Um, so I'd then go to bed. I wouldn't go to bed without addressing it, you know. So I've got to get, you know, George Cruz, Maro Toje, Billy Vunipola, Owen Farrell, George Ford, Ben Youngs, Danny Care. I've got to get these guys in the room and be like, today wasn't good enough. Tomorrow I need you to pick up 3, 4 people each, and you know, so that the density of the squad know the message. And again, the next morning could walk in with the same message, or he might be in a good mood. He might have just had his coffee and he's like, good mate, make sure we have a good day today. So full well knowing that I've probably taken care of the issue or the complacency. And sometimes, you know, the team wasn't even complacent. It's just, you learn to know what coaches are doing. So you know how to address it. So like, I think in a leadership role with Eddie in particular, leadership and high performance was always in the front of my mind. So, you know, if you walk into a room and I ask you to find something green, like you'll find everything that's green in that room. And one of his mentors or confidants within that setup, I worked with a bit with Craigie, a guy called Neil Craig, who's an AFL guy. He taught me this, and he said, if you're constantly thinking about high performance and good standards, wherever you go, you'll be looking for good standards and high performance. And equally, when you don't see it, you'll see shit standards and sloppy performance. So the whole time as a captain, when you know you've got someone like Eddie and Craigie at the top, it made me think like that. So wherever I went, from cleanliness to kind of technique and walkthroughs, um, body height at breakdown, would have to be at match height, even though we were walking. Ball presentation would have to be exactly how Danny Care and Ben Youngs would want the ball in a game. Don't just roll it back. Don't just roll onto your back and just, like, everything had to be 101 or 110%, in terms of your mental application. Equally, walking around seeing water bottles or tape just chucked on the floor, it was all small signs of either high performance or not good enough. So I think working with Eddie, it was just always front of mind, thinking about rugby, thinking about the team, and if anything, not thinking about myself.